Welcome! So this is me, I'm Nick, I'm the face behind the Things I Care About YouTube channel, and if you're here, you're likely because you just watched my War of 1812 video, and I just wanted to make this video to just comment on a few or more than a few things, because there's just so much that doesn't make it into the final cut of the dialogue and thus of the video, and I just feel like there's more that I want to talk about whenever I make one of those videos, and I thought that maybe uploading a video to this channel after I upload a video to the main channel may be an interesting way for me to discuss some of the topics more in depth, and also give you guys maybe more of a behind the scenes look at some of the things that are going on, just share my thoughts and opinions on some of the things that I'm covering, and yeah, I think that overall it might be a very interesting experience. So first of all, I'm really sorry this video took a lot longer than usual. I've been, I think, averaging like a month per video, maybe a bit more, and I think it's going to be about 3 months since I uploaded the last video by the time this is going to be live. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So there was definitely a lot more going on in my life and in the animator that I hired, life, in his life as well. So that did delay things a bit more. Also, as you may have noticed, the quality of the video has gone like way up. And there were many scenes that we had to like redo as I learned more things, as the animator and I learned to work together a bit better. So that was definitely a factor of why it took longer. In the future, though, I want to continue this schedule of a video per month on average, maybe a month and a half. I do want to make sure that the quality is good, but I mean, I'm not going to spend like an extra month animating just so that the animation itself is like fancier. So I want to find a nice balance between good animation that makes the story seamless, but yeah, I don't want to like lose a month just because I'm gonna make, I don't know, like an extremely fancy background or something. Yeah, and I gotta say, I was so happy in this video that I finally got to cover a chill video. I mean, I covered the Vietnam War parts 1 and 2, then we had Lawrence of Arabia, which I guess was, you know, a bit more chill. Then we had the Korean War parts 1 and 2, and then Israel-Palestine parts 1 and 2. So it's been quite a while since I've been mostly, it's been like videos about war crimes, basically. It's like war crime after war crime after war crime. So I'm really happy that this time, even though there were a lot of war crimes, I could, you know, take a lighter tone, make more jokes. I mean, the previous videos, it were so many grim things that it was really hard to make many jokes. As they say, right, the comedy is like tragedy and time. There's just not been enough time in those tragedies for me to make like too much fun about them, especially since what's going on right now with Israel and Palestine. So yeah, I mean, finally I could just focus on the War of 1812, make a bunch of jokes and have fun. And I really hope you guys noticed that and enjoyed it as much as Cam and I, the animator, enjoyed animating this for you. Now, I had to leave so much out. It's actually insane. I'm gonna try to cover some of the things, at least mention them. So my main sources for this video were the books by John Latimer, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, and also Donald R. Hickey. Both of those books were my main sources. One was like an American author, one is a British author. So I really like that did help me a lot in bringing some more balance, which I hope I accomplished this video to try to make a nice combination of both points of view. And yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, both of those books, if you want to check them out, they're great, but they're also incredibly long, and there's so much to this work. My intention was to be like, you know what, I just made like an hour worth of animation with the Israel-Palestine video. I just want to do a quick 20-minute video. So I said, all right, War of 1812, you know, it's a popular topic, people like it, it's gonna be quick.
Go in and out, 20 minutes
Video. And yeah, I just didn't really think about just how much. I mean, I think half of my video is just talking about all the context needed to begin discussing the War of 1812. I mean, there is so much going on. You have the war with the Creeks, that's basically like a mini war inside the whole conflict. You have the whole thing adjacent to the Napoleonic Wars as well. You have so many conflicts, so many fights at sea as well, which is crazy. And the internal politics of the US is a whole issue, right? I didn't really get to talk too much about like the fall of the Federalist Party, which is like really connected to the war as well. There's again so much like smuggling was. There was a lot of trade going on between the US and Britain throughout the war, which is kind of funny, but it did happen. So there's so much that I just couldn't get into the video, right? It was already, I think, like 40 minutes long, and I wanted to go for half that. So yeah, that's something you always gotta consider, right? At some point, you just have to be like, you know what? I'm gonna have to leave this out. And I try to leave things out that I think are like interesting, but not like fundamental to the story. So yeah, I had to leave a lot out or just like mention it very briefly. There is one more thing I want to talk about before we dive into the content itself of the video. And it's that you may have noticed that this was the first video where I really went into like battle formations and things like that. And usually it's not really something I like to do all that much. But I do like having a little bit of it. My plan would be to continue to cover the topics at large. I really like the idea of learning about a topic and having it be useful, right? Oh, the War of 1812 allows me to understand the dynamics or like the consequences it had for like the natives and whatever. So I'm not really that fond of just going crazy on, oh, in this battle, this guy maneuvered like this and flanked whoever, which can be interesting. So I think I like to sprinkle that in, right? A couple battles, if they are like very relevant, and give some more detail. But other than that, I mean, I feel like there's channels who go in depth into the whole like strategies and things like that and the tactics. Not really my thing, so I think I like to include it when it really helps to understand something or when something interesting happened, like when Proctor like threw away his army. But yeah, not for every scene, I think. Alright, I do want to comment, like I made a lot of fun of the US in this video and on the British as well. And I don't want anyone to take it personally. I mean, it's a joke. I just made a couple jokes. And I do want to say, I mean, I like to make fun of every country. There are rules, however, right? It is one thing to punch up. It's another thing to punch down. And there are different ways in which I think we can make fun of each other's country. I'm certainly going to be making a lot of fun of my own once we actually get to that point. I mean, I think in the German video I had like every Bavarian dressed up in the classic like lederhosen or something. So that's definitely something I like to do, and don't worry too much about it. There's no like ill will behind it. There's one thing I want to comment. So I did make a lot of comments about the whole like genociding the natives and things like that. And I think it's a good chance for me to just talk about that. So you may know I'm German, raised in Chile, but still German after all. My family is German. I have people in my family who lived through World War II in Germany, or at least in Hungary, in German places, in German towns, or colonies basically in Hungary. So very much connected to World War II. And I think that whenever I bring up things like this, it's not my intention to make you feel guilty or something. I don't think that is productive, but I think that it's important that we recognize our past, recognize how injustices of the past may have put us in a position of privilege over other people, or maybe just have us be like in a standard position versus other people who are or are suffering the consequences of having been oppressed at some point. And you know, there's a nice quote, I think it was like a Holocaust survivor who said, "It's not your responsibility, you know, what happened, but it is your responsibility that it never happens again." And I think that's what I really want to communicate, right? We learn about what our country has done wrong in the past or present, and we do our best to learn from it and do what we can to, you know, do the opposite of that. So I guess that's where I want this to go towards, right? If you see me criticizing the actions of a country, take it like that, and don't be afraid to criticize your own country, because I think that is one of the most patriotic things you can do, right? If you truly love your country, you want it to be the best version of itself that it possibly can. It's not about being like blindly patriotic and, oh my god, my country is great, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, no, every country in the world has a lot of issues, right? Different kinds of issues, but every single one has a lot of issues. And those are the ones we have to recognize, reckon with, and yeah, try to improve in whatever way we can. So I hope that, you know, again, my commentary can hopefully lead to some reflection in that area. But no, I never mean to be like, oh, haha, your country's dumb, my country's so cool. No, every country sucks. I mean, there's so much I hate about Germany, hate about Chile, so much I love about those countries, so much I want them to change for the better, and things like that, right? Anyways. So one thing that I barely covered in my video was the Baltimore riots. So I literally had like one scene. In my original script, I planned to cover, because there were several riots actually, and so they were very interesting. People sieged the houses of the guys who were printing these anti-war newspapers, and things got very brutal. So I think I used the word like, oh, brutal riots occurred, but like they were like brutal. I mean, people got killed like a lot, and it was messed up. Like if you can read about it, I encourage you to do so. It was messed up, right? I considered going into it, but again, if I'm going to go into everything, it's going to be like a 2-hour long documentary, and I'm not really aiming for that. But I do encourage you to check that out. Also, when I'm talking about Laura Secourt's journey, right, when she warned the British of the coming Americans, what I wanted to do there, first of all, I think it's kind of funny because there's like that famous "the British are coming" quote from the American War of Independence, or the Revolutionary War. And this is kind of the opposite, like the Americans are coming. Anyways, so I was actually planning to do like dialogue scene, a bit of a skit. So have her be, I don't know, like soldiers in a bar or in a house, and she's like, they're just listening to what they're saying, and then she goes out and they're like, hey, where you're going? And then just, I don't know, putting a joke in there somewhere. But the reason I wanted to, or I decided against it, is because we don't really get to hear about the participation of women in war, which is often overlooked. It's not zero or negligible, but oftentimes history has overlooked it. So I really wanted to emphasize that part and just tell her story, have it be impactful. And I feel like would have undermined it if I had done just a funny scene about it. So that's why I decided not to go for that. Also, at the very end of the video, at the Treaty of Ghent, I'm a big fan of The Witcher, and I've been replaying the game, which is why you may have seen a couple references here and there. And I considered to just add a Gwent joke. So Gwent as in the game, the card game that you can play inside of The Witcher. But I don't know. I mean, I was like, I don't know if that many of my viewers have played The Witcher. And if that's not the case, then it's just gonna be weird. So I decided against it, but I thought about it. Also, there are like details of things I wanted to do. So when Hall goes and takes the village of Sandwich, I was thinking about making him like actually eat the sandwich in the map, but I feel like that would have been too much animation, and my characters aren't really designed to like actually open their jaw and eat. So I mean, maybe it wasn't that difficult, but to actually make it look like good, I felt it was just more time than I wanted to put in. But it's the kind of thing that I may do in the future once I learn how to do that. Yeah, and after Hall had the whole like failure, I have a scene where a soldier, I think it was Hall, was aiming at him, and they have him say like, do I do it? I actually was thinking about putting something like, press the subscribe button and I shoot. But then I was like, wait, what would people think? Like, maybe people like him, so they don't want the guy to shoot, so maybe they are not going to subscribe because of that. So I went back and forth with different, like, I don't know, something to drive engagement, like, oh, leave a comment, should I shoot or something. But I felt that it could be taken the wrong way, maybe. So I ended up just like not doing that. Now, I know that this is very scrambled. I just made a list of things I wanted to cover. I mean, there's so much more, but there were just things I really felt I wanted to talk to you guys about. Another thing that I thought about just adding a couple more text lines in, talking about how the War of 1812 was also such a disproportionate war in terms of like the psyche of the nations. So for the US, it was like a very important war, right? Oh, we are at war with the British again, and it's like a very big psychological thing, and they're all on it. But the British were not really too interested, right? The Americans were fighting a colonial force. They weren't really fighting the British main army, which is also why we can see that once the British actually arrive, there are like, you know, there's the burning of Washington and things like that. Alexandria is raided and whatnot. And you gotta consider that, right? It was the US fighting a colonial force. It wasn't the best British ships, the best British soldiers. It was, just a colonial force. So that is something to consider, not to discredit the Americans, even though their army was definitely not what it is today back then. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that. Also, there was so much to talk about privateering, right? Which is such an interesting thing, to have basically like random people in their ships go and do war on behalf of the government, basically, and raid ships and raid commerce. And it was actually very effective. Like, I actually read in the couple, I think it was like first 4 months of the war. I think that was what Latimer, I don't know how to pronounce that, in his book was saying, the British author. He claims that they captured like 200 British vessels in the 4 months. So it is it's very impactful. Of course, their impact diminished as the war went on. The British developed better tactics, and they ended up having more ships available as well. So that's very important. Now, there is a scene that I'm sure that's gonna cause some sort of sentiment from people in the audience. I try not to be rude, but I have a scene where Andrew Jackson is in that treaty of Fort Jackson, and he says like, "Oh well, you shouldn't have done that, dumbass." And I was really, so yeah, I mean, I was thinking about maybe just having like, "Oh, shouldn't have done that, dummy." But I feel like, I mean, it was Andrew Jackson. That guy, I mean, I know it's a different standard, right? Being racist nowadays, I think, is much less common, thankfully, than being racist back in the day. That was like the standard. So you can't really apply today's morals to something in the past. But like, boy, oh boy, was that guy a racist. Like, holy moly, that guy was an asshole to Native Americans. Like, not only during the war, or like then during the Seminole, I think it was like the first Seminole War, but like, that guy messed them up. I mean, I think like he literally signed the law, what's it called, like the Indian Removal Act that came later, which was like literally one of the main factors of what would then be called the Trail of Tears, which was absolutely horrifying for the natives. There was just so much that he did, like just completely disregarding their sovereignty. And yeah, I mean, I feel like he deserved that. So I know it was harsh, and I may get some criticism for that, but I feel like I do want I don't like history to be neutral entirely. I feel like there are some things that are like objectively messed up, and I like to point that out. Like, that is messed up, what he did, both in the video, right, what I showed, and what he did later. So I feel like he deserved that. And I was actually considering to talk about how he ruled New Orleans with an iron fist after the battle itself, but that just went too much on a tangent, and I felt it just didn't fit into the narrative. Like, it was like a detour, and I'm already finishing the video, so I felt like it just wasn't worth it to be added in there. So there's also a phrase I used about buying an ID for $1. I don't know if you recall that, when I'm talking about impressment and how the British were buying American IDs to like hide from the Royal Navy. And that is actually a real phrase that was used. And it's really interesting that it was a real problem. I mean, Americans could go to like different notaries and get like a dozen IDs, and they would just then start selling them to any British who kind of looked like them, which ended up meaning that many British captains who were, impressing sailors would then just completely disregard the ID system. So I made a joke about it in the video, but just so that you know, it's not made up. It has a real basis in that sense. I mean, again, and another thing that I just couldn't fit in was the 1814 financial crisis for the US. So there was like a huge like restructuring that had to be done throughout the war. I mean, even how the military restructured, right? You had the failures of 1812. In 1813, they restructured, they did a bit better, and then they have this massive financial crisis in a big part because of the British blockade. So that is also very, very relevant. And again, it's like, I'm at 40 minutes, like, what do I remove for this? I felt like this story was told good enough without that information, but yeah, it's just something else if you want to look into it. I talked about, like, there were so many things going on. I barely talked about, like, Tecumseh's brother, Tenskwatawa. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much about them as well. I barely got to cover it. They were so important, such important characters, and couldn't give them any time. And I wish I could have done that. Maybe I could have created the story better so that I can tell their story without making the video much longer, but I didn't really see a way to do that. Maybe at some point I'll cover some sort of like Native American or the war with the natives itself, and then I can dedicate more time to that aspect. But well, I guess it is what it is, right? And I think I just mentioned in the Red Sticks Uprising that the Spanish contributed. I was thinking about like adding like a Spanish guy like popping in and saying like "ole" or something. But I don't know, it felt a bit weird, so I got rid of that. So overall, I mean, I guess this is enough to tell you. I've been ranting for a while now. Thank you for sticking up to this point if you have. So one of the things that I am honestly quite proud about is just how well I feel my animation capabilities have improved. As I mentioned, in great part because I now have an animator who was working alongside me and who has taught me a lot. But yeah, I mean, if you think back to my first video, which was just over a year ago, I guess, a year and a couple of months, the Hitler video. I mean, I went through different art styles, what I try to find in my own, and just animations getting a bit better in every video. And that's what I try to do, just every video, have it be just a little bit better than the one before. So yeah, I hope that you guys have been enjoying the new animation style. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I wanted to talk about. I don't know how you guys feel about this kind of content. I mean, do let me know. And how long would you want a video like this to be? I mean, is this length enough or is it too long? Let me know your thoughts. And if you enjoy this kind of talk, why not hop into one of my streams at twitch.tv/tknick. And I'm also going to be doing like a self-reaction to my video a couple days after the actual release of the video. So yeah, I mean, go follow me on my Twitch. I'm going to have it written down there when I'm going to start this stream with my self-reaction to this video so that we can actually talk about it a bit more. And yeah, I'm going to now rest, finish the editing, and start reading for the next video. So yeah, thank you for watching, and again, check out my Twitch channel if you want, and subscribe to this one. So I'll see you in another video, and thank you very much for watching.